Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I am very excited to share some incredible chess traps and tricks in the French defense. I will share the traps and gambits for both sides, so, get ready for these amazing chess traps and sit at your table or wherever you are. It starts with e4, and black plays e6 and d5, initiating the French variation. Here, white has many options: to capture the pawn, push forward, or play knight to c3 or d2. I will share the traps in all variations from both sides. From black's perspective, they might consider playing c5, bringing the queen out to b6, and developing the bishop and knight to c6. First, instead of playing e5, the advanced variation of the French defense, I will play knight to c3. Black has two options to consider: bishop to b4 or capturing the pawn. If black captures the pawn on e4, then after exchanges, and the bishop comes to d6, this bishop is like Jack Sparrow, commanding its ship in the direction of the knight. Then, something like bishop to d3. Knight to e7, instead of placing the knight on f6, black will fall into our trap. After I play bishop to g5, pinning down the knight. If black castles, they are in trouble. They will have to pack their bags and go home, noticing that the bishop has opened the diagonal, and the king's position is completely fragile. Can you guess what move I will consider in this position? Try to think a little bit. If you are a gambitier, you will find the move, knight to f6, sacrificing the knight in the opening. After the exchanges you can see that the knight is under attack, and at the same time, queen to g4 is coming to deliver checkmate. If black tries to escape from the bishop, it doesn't matter because I can sacrifice another piece on h7. Have you ever sacrificed your pieces like this, with non-stop sacrifices to checkmate the black king in the opening? Queen to h5 followed by queen to h8 will lead to mate. The game will be over. Now you have learned the first trap, and you can apply it in your games. If your opponent does not play that move, don't worry, you just need to understand the key moves in the French variation. So, in this position, instead of capturing the pawn, many chess players might consider bishop to b4, which looks advantageous to pin the knight. Just play bishop to d2, and after black captures the pawn, bring out your queen to g4, attacking the g7 pawn and threatening the e4 pawn. Black might respond tactically because he is also a fan of Mikhail Tal. Queen takes d4. Trying to support these two pawns, the queen is doing its job to protect its armies by caring for their health. After playing long castled, to get access to the open file, black might consider playing f5, which is the best move to establish a pawn structure, but black will face consequences after I play bishop to g5. This bishop, along with the rook on d1, creates a lot of pressure on black's position. As the queen moves back, black's position becomes completely fragile. Black could capture the pawn on f2, it doesn't matter because after rook to d8 check, the king moves to f7, a cunning move will arrive on the board. Can you guess what move I will consider? Try to think like me and Mikhail Tal, who always sacrificed his pieces to taste black's defeat. Knight to f3, sacrificing the knight because your bishop will be under attack. Although he takes f3 was the best move, losing your bishop on b4 gives you the open diagonal. If black dares to play queen to a5, creating a bishop-queen battery, he will fall into our trap. Now, even God cannot protect him. Bishop to b5 will come on the board, threatening bishop to e8 check. Although God is omnipotent and if he played chess, nobody could defeat him, your opponent is not God, he is just a chess player. Using these gambits and traps, you can win your game easily. Knight to c6 does not matter to block the bishop. Here comes a very cunning move. Can you guess the move? If you haven't found the previous brilliant move, don't worry, I am giving you another chance to find the best move. The move is knight to e5. What a sneaky sacrifice it is. The problem for black is that black's position is completely fragile. The king can't move anywhere, so he has to accept my knight's sacrifice. Then I will play bishop to e8 check, forcing the king to retreat, and consequently, bishop to h5 will lead to checkmate. The game will be over for him. Alright, going back to the position, we discovered the chess traps behind knight to c3. Let's talk about the knight to d2 variation, which guards the e4 pawn. Black might play knight to c6, which is good instead of c5. or black might consider knight to f6, which is also commonly played, then push your pawn to e5, advancing your pawn structure, retreating the knight, and playing bishop to d3. This bishop move is very crucial, and black will likely consider c5 and knight to c6. Black plays the casual move c5. And you can respond with c3, creating a solid pawn chain. So, let me provide you a motivational quote in sudden with you. Sometimes you need to take a break from everyone and spend time alone to experience, appreciate, and love yourself. Black will try to put pressure on the d4 pawn with his knight and pawn. Eventually, queen to b6 will come to put pressure on the center and the pawn. You can play knight to e2, and then move the knight to f3, stabilizing the center. Black will likely try to capture the center pawns, but it doesn't matter. If bishop to b4 check comes on the board, think a little about what white should do. Instead of blocking the check with the bishop, you have a cunning move, king to f1. This move leaves black uncertain whether to castle or not. If black decides to castle, it's a suicidal move because you can actually sacrifice your bishop on the h7 square. This is called the Greek gift sacrifice, offering black a seemingly valuable piece that hides a deadly threat. After black captures the bishop, you play knight to g5 check. This knight is protected by the dark square bishop, and your queen is ready to launch a heavy attack along this diagonal. Then, knight to f4 will come, putting immense pressure on black. Black has two moves to consider. If they move the king to g8, hiding in the corner, you can bring your queen to d3, attacking along the file. If black plays g6, then queen to h3 will come, threatening checkmate on the next move. Even playing rook to e8 won't help because you have a strong queen move to h7. Black's pieces are too busy in the center and on the queen side, leaving the king vulnerable on the king side. In the main position, instead of king to g8, some players might consider king to g6, but that doesn't matter because queen to d3 will come, after f5, followed by knight to f4, checking the black king, and after black captures the knight, queen check, and then subsequently queen to h4 will lead to checkmate. Black will face checkmate and will be very upset after losing the game to this trap. If you are enjoying these traps, please hit the like button and comment for more videos. I have shown you 3 chess traps with the white pieces, and now it's my duty to show you traps in the French defense from the black side as well. If you get the black pieces on Lichess or chess.com, you might not always get the white pieces, so you need to know the traps with the black pieces too. After e4, consider e6, deploying the French defense, and after d5 happens on the board, black has 4 main moves to consider. First, let me show you the variation with knight to f3, a crucial move played by many chess players. You can pin the knight with bishop to b4, if white plays knight to e2, intending to protect the other knight. This trap is very effective for intermediate players. After capturing on e4, and some exchanges, you play knight to c6, attacking the pawn. The queen is important to protect the pawn, but if black ignores that pawn and plays queen to g4, attacking the g7 pawn, it's a blunder. Black can capture the d4 pawn first, giving white the opportunity to capture the g7 pawn and later the rook, but black can then capture the pawn on c2, checking the king, and as the king moves, queen to d3 will lead to checkmate. This trap works well for intermediate players. Let me show you another trap with the black pieces. Instead of knight to e2, some may push the pawn to e5. In response, consider c5, a very useful move to dominate the board. If white plays a3, attacking the bishop, instead of capturing the knight, move the bishop back. If black plays b4, and after captures, white might think that capturing the pawn is advantageous, but bishop takes b4 will pin the knight and queen to c7 will put pressure on the knight. White might respond with queen to g4, attacking the g7 pawn, but it doesn't matter. Queen to c7 will put pressure on the knight. The best move for white is knight to b5, but if white captures the g7 pawn, aiming for the rook, they forget about the knight. After capturing the pawn, the king moves, and b3 will come, attacking the pawn, and your rook is also under attack. The c2 pawn will be captured, and checkmate is imminent. Going back to the position, we have discovered some intermediate level chess gambits in the knight to c3 variation. Now, let's talk about the popular variation with knight to e2, alright, that should be easy, you can go with knight to c6, white can develop his knight in either of two ways, but I have a special trap in this variation. If white considers knight to e2, then he will be in trouble. I will play e5, and after white captures the pawn on d5, you capture it back. The problem is that now, no matter what white plays, you can actually place your knight on the b4 square, sacrificing the queen right away. Beginner or intermediate chess players might get greedy and capture your queen, but that will lead to an instant checkmate with knight to d3. So, let me tell you an amazing quote about life. Stop worrying about what tomorrow may bring, focus on what you can control, stay positive, enjoy today, expect good things to come. So, going back to the variations, let's see what happens if white plays knight to f3 instead of knight to e2, you play knight to f6, and if white responds with e5, the knight moves back and c3 comes on the board to create a pawn chain. This pawn chain seems strong, but it doesn't matter because you can break it with the c6 move, forcing white to capture your pawn. After some exchanges, bishop to b5 comes on the board, attacking the knight, then you can go with a6, attacking the bishop. White might think he's smart and play queen to a4, pinning your pawn and thinking your pawn cannot be captured. But you know what? Every lion and every chess king can be outsmarted by a stronger one. Capture the bishop anyway, sacrificing the rook right away. After white captures it, knight to b6 comes on the board, trapping the queen. White will lose the game by losing the queen in the opening. Nobody can defeat me in chess. I've shared master, intermediate, and advanced level traps in the French defense variations. I hope you enjoyed it all. If so, then don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Wishing you all the best, bye bye, take care, and subscribe for more videos.